The number of Nigerian women who continue to succumb to uterine fibroid, which has continued to rise in spite of spirited interventions by health institutions, especially those from the private sector. Such interventions majorly come in the ways of surgeries, which by current economic metrics is very expensive. We'll now proceed to have a quick chat around this matter with Dr. Abayomi Ajayi, a fertility expert and Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Fibroid Care Center at Nordica. We will discuss the high rate of the Nigerian women dying of fibroid and the way it can be removed without going through the knife or any surgical procedure. Welcome to Newsday, sir.
Thank you so much. So good to have me.
Very good. So, first of all, why is there a high prevalence of fibroid cases in Nigerian women?
Well, I wish I could answer that question. It's actually $1 million question,
yeah.
But we know that as blacks, we are more at risk of having uterine fibroids. So it's not only a Nigerian thing, but there's probably a gene in us. We don't know what gene it is yet. There's a lot of work going on that aspect, but that has not been discovered for now. But we know some of the risk factors that as we grow older, we stand the chance of having uterine fibroids. We know up to about 70 to 80% of our women by the age of 50 who have uterine fibroids. We know also that if you see your menses earlier, you might be likely to have uterine fibroids. If you're obese, it's also a risk factor for uterine fibroid. But probably the strongest factor is when a family member, either your mother or your sister, has uterine fibroid. That's a greater risk factor.
So it's hereditary?
Sort of, yeah. That's the genetic component of it.
And as a woman, it's hard to know when they have manifested, but there will be symptoms. Could you talk about some of the symptoms and some of the ways women can diagnose themselves or get diagnosed if they fear they might have?
Yeah, thank you so very much. Nice question. Yes, the unfortunate thing most times is that sometimes you might have no symptoms at all. Okay, so it's not unusual for some women to find out only when they are having their annual medical. Okay, but for some, most of the symptoms are related to the menstrual cycle. Either it becomes heavier or it becomes irregular or the bleeding between periods. Okay, and for some, it's the pain that they have during the menstrual period that first tells them something's going on here. And for some, it's just that they feel that there's something growing in their tummy, you know. So those are some of the things before other things now start cropping up. Maybe because the uterus, where the fibroid is, has neighbors, the organs that are adjacent or very near to it, like the bladder, like the rectum. Sometimes, so you see, it's not unusual sometimes for people with very big fibroids to be going to the loo frequently, okay, and for some of them to have constipation. So yeah, these are, but also there is sometimes this, especially in this environment, the association with infertility.
All right, so which groups of women most susceptible to fibroid cases, and what about those who haven't actually given birth? So what's the susceptibility ratio there?
Well, what we used to say is that the uterus with the fibroid is the uterus crying for a baby. Okay, so and that's where the age thing comes in. If a woman does not have a baby and she becomes more mature, the likelihood of having fibroids increases. Okay, so yeah, it's probably commoner, and that's the association with infertility. But many people think it causes infertility, but that's not really very true. It's only 2 to 3% of the time that fibroid causes infertility. Most of the time, it's an association.
All right, let's talk about fibroid growth within a pregnancy. How does one manage that scenario?
Well, I think that's also a very good question in the sense that, let's clarify that having a fibroid does not mean you cannot get pregnant, okay? But usually doctors don't want to do any surgery when you're pregnant because the blood supply to the uterus when a woman is pregnant is enormous, and therefore fibroid surgery itself is a bloody surgery. Now, when the uterus is highly vascularized, that's not the time to want to do surgery on a pregnant woman for fibroids.
But do you also have a scenario where a woman is tested while she's pregnant for that fibroid tendencies? Or because you wouldn't know by the time she's pregnant. But she herself wouldn't have that feeling.
No. Fibroid is different from pregnancy. So, okay. So if a woman is already pregnant and you've discovered that she has fibroids,
okay,
then you're not going to do anything in that pregnancy. You can just monitor because, yes, there's some things that can probably go wrong, but so many people have pregnancies with fibroids and nothing goes wrong. So the best you can do is just monitor around that time and see how it's going to, then advise probably bed rest, you know. So, but if she has nothing, the fibroid is not disturbing the pregnancy, just let it be.
And then concerning the fibroids themselves, I know that they can be quite small and they're not much of an issue, but when they grow quite large, you have to take them out. Can we discuss how that works? They were saying that there's ways to operate on them without operating on them, so to speak, and also the recurrence of fibroids, because you often hear, you know, multiple women going in for multiple surgeries for removal, and what causes the regrowth and the factors that might affect that.
Okay, thank you. Now, the first thing is that when a uterus has fibroids, okay, the only way to cure is to remove the uterus. All right, so any other method is like, okay, to temporize or just manage that condition. So what I'm saying is that no matter the method that you're using, there is a risk of recurrence because the uterus is still there, okay? But now, when we look at when you do surgery, because majority of our women wait for a long time because of the fear of surgery, now it gets very big. Sometimes, and then sometimes there are many. And it might be completely impossible for the doctor to be able to remove everything. Two, there is a condition that is not fibroids that looks like fibroids. Like it's called adenomyosis, which is a form of endometriosis. All right. Now, when the doctor encounters that also, there is a problem. So I'm trying to go to your question of recurrence. Why sometimes after a fibroid surgery, 1 or 2 years after that, the patient says, this thing is back. So it could be that the fibroids, some new ones have regrown, or that the doctor could not finish the job because there's some adenomyosis in there at that point in time. And that's one of the things that also, you know, anytime a doctor takes a patient to surgery, your first thing is safety, all right? And that's why in some other climes also, when you have huge fibroids and you're going for surgery, even in this climb, you sign that if there's blood loss that we cannot control, we can remove the uterus. Those are some of the things that surgery can bring about. And that's why now there are ways to treat fibroids, like you said, without removing them, or remove them without removing them. And that's really and truly, that's what I'm here for today, because we had this method of treating fibroids without removing them, and that is as easy as that you lie down on the bed for about 1 hour, and we play with our softwares and stuff like that, and then that's all. We kill the fibroids.
Okay, so is it through laser technology? Or?
No, it's called high intensive focused ultrasound. Actually, it's ultrasound.
And when you talk about killing it, does it mean kill completely but slight chance of reoccurrence? And then when you kill it, how does it, for lack of better terms, how does it pass
disappear
through? Exactly, because obviously something is there and then it has to be not there again, but it has to go somewhere. So what's that? Because it couldn't, maybe the procedure is quite easy, but then when the lady goes home, what is it that they probably will have to encounter? Or is it just like a zip, it's gone?
Okay, wonderful question. Because that's one of the problems we're still having. The thing is that you have a fibroid. Is it actually that you want it removed or you want your quality of life back? Do you get me? Okay. But because we've been used to removing it, most of us are still hung up on that. But now we have a method that does not remove it. It kills the fibroid. And how does it kill it? It denatures the fibroid. Just like you take an egg and throw it into water and you now boil the water. Suddenly you have changed the nature of the protein in the egg.
Right.
You cannot fry that same egg anymore. The same thing is what HIFU machine does to the fibroid. It changes ultrasound energy to heat energy and kills the fibroid by what we call coagulative necrosis. Okay, so it kills it. So it changes the nature. The fibroid that you have treated cannot, for a lack of a better word, to resurrect. But there might be other fibroids that might grow. But many studies have been done. For example, we have done 400 in Nigeria now. We actually did number 400 on Thursday. And we've had no complications. Now, the great thing about this is that there is no anesthesia involved. There is no blood loss involved because we don't cut. The patient goes home that very day, starts doing anything she likes the second day. So there is no time for you to lie down and then, because what we don't know sometimes is because sometimes some things happen after fibroid surgery. And people say, oh, doctors have killed another person. But sometimes it is beyond what the doctors can do anything about, okay? Because there's some things we call premorbid states, okay? For example, let's just for the sake of things say, okay, maybe I'm hypertensive. I'm not, but let's say I'm hypertensive. Okay, and I now do a surgery. And I'm compelled to lie down for, let's say, 4 days. All right, and I'm obese. There's some risk factors already that are at play. And then something that we call deep venous thrombosis, that a blood clot forms in my system. And then 3 days after that, I clot to my chest and I have a heart attack. What everybody is still going to be talking about is the surgery that I had 4 days ago.
Right.
You know, but that is not the cause. It's not the direct cause. So, but of course, it's still in that period of time. And that's why we're interested in taking out that risk of the things that surround that procedure. That look, there are ways that we can treat the fibroid with that. Because when you look at all the morbidities and mortalities that surround the surgery of fibroids, it's either because of blood loss or anesthesia or what I just described, a blood clot forming in the system. So, and these are the things that this method has completely taken away.
That's awesome. Is it an expensive procedure? And is it something you have to do more than once?
No, most of the people who do it, they do it once. Okay. I was going to look at your phone to know whether I will answer whether it's
it's not like his.
So it depends on who we're talking about.
Right.
It's not an expensive procedure, but it's technology. So
right.
All right, Dr. Abayomi, Ajayi, I'd like to thank you very much for your thoughts on the fibroid options of treatment and, of course, the prevalence of in Nigerian women. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.